Picture this. You're sitting alone in your room, the light from your phone flickering across your face, and the silence feels heavier than any argument ever could. You replay the moments in your head, the laughs, the late night conversations, the times you went out of your way to show her you cared. You remember the warmth, the connection, the way she looked at you when you first met, when everything felt electric, like the world had finally aligned in your favor. And yet, despite everything you gave, despite all your loyalty, effort, and time, something shifted. The spark is gone. The energy you once shared has faded. And you sit there asking yourself, what went wrong? Was it me? Was it her? Or is it something deeper? Something most men never understand about love, desire, and human psychology. My brother, listen closely because this is the brutal truth. She does not love you for what you do, for the effort you invest, or even for the loyalty you demonstrate. She loves how she feels when she's with you, the elevation, the excitement, the tension, the admiration, the feeling of being alive. And when that feeling changes, when the emotional experience shifts, everything changes with it. You see, human beings are wired for emotional intensity, not predictability. The chemicals in the brain, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, dictate attachment, excitement, desire, and bond formation. At the beginning, you were mysterious, unpredictable, driven. Your presence triggered her nervous system in ways that made her brain light up with anticipation. Every message, every smile, every glance activated reward circuits, creating emotional highs that felt like love. But here's where most men fail to see the mechanism. Over time, when you become predictable, overly available, or collapse your identity to please her, you unintentionally remove the very stimulation that created attraction. Dopamine fades, excitement softens, and with that, feelings begin to withdraw. And it's not her fault. It's not yours entirely. It is the biology of human attraction. The subtle shifts in energy, in presence, in emotional consistency, all communicate more than words ever could. When you begin to chase validation, when you begin to overinvest emotionally without boundaries, your value in her subconscious begins to drop. She senses it, even if she cannot articulate it. Attraction is maintained through contrast, strength and warmth, mystery and presence, independence and emotional accuracy. When those contrasts disappear, polarity collapses, and what once felt magnetic becomes familiar, predictable, and safe. And in safety without excitement, desire fades. Now let me paint the scene for you. Imagine a man who was once ambitious, driven, and independent. She admired his direction. She respected his discipline. She loved the way he created space for himself and by extension for her. But over time, he begins to rearrange his life around her. He cancels workouts, sacrifices plans, over-responds to messages, and molds his identity around her emotions. He believes he is proving love, but in reality, he is signaling dependency. And dependency kills polarity. The spark fades, the chemistry shifts, and suddenly the energy she once felt, the very thing that made her desire him, begins to fade. She doesn't leave because she stopped caring. She leaves because the emotional experience, the highs, the thrill, the intensity are no longer there. This is why most men feel blindsided. They give, they sacrifice, they bend over backward, and yet love slips through their fingers. It is not cruelty, it is nature, it is biology, it is human wiring. And here's the key. The solution is not to manipulate, beg, or overcompensate. The solution is mastery. Mastery over your mind, your body, your mission, your emotional state. Become a man who does not collapse under pressure, who does not lose himself trying to maintain love. Become a man whose presence elevates, inspires, excites, and stabilizes. When you build yourself first, when you maintain purpose, when you protect your identity, love follows naturally. Attraction grows, loyalty deepens, and respect solidifies. If she stays because she is drawn to the energy you radiate. If she leaves, you remain intact, unshaken, and whole, because your value is never defined by someone else's feelings. Remember this, brother. She doesn't love you in isolation. She loves how she feels in your presence. And your presence, your energy, your grounded power, your independence, these are what create desire. Protect your energy, elevate your life, strengthen your mind, command your frame, and never, ever collapse your identity for someone else's affection. The man who masters himself does not chase love, he radiates it. And in that radiance, he becomes unforgettable. You're walking home alone at night. The streetlights stretch long shadows across the pavement. The air is cold. Your phone is silent. And for the time in a long time, you feel the weight of reality pressing against your chest. You thought she was forever. You thought love was permanent once spoken. You thought effort guaranteed security. My brother, that's the illusion. And tonight, we destroy it. You were raised to believe that love is unconditional, that if you are loyal enough, patient enough, understanding enough, she will stay. You were taught that sacrifice equals depth, that giving more proves your value. But human beings are not wired to love sacrifice alone. We are wired to respond to emotional states. Every relationship is an emotional ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, feelings are currency. When she first met you, you were expansion, you were ambition, you were direction, you were unknown territory. Your presence activated her nervous system. Her brain released dopamine, the chemical of anticipation and reward. You weren't just a man, you were a feeling. And feelings are addictive. But addiction requires intensity. Over time, intensity fades if not balanced with polarity. And this is where most men unknowingly lose the battle. You begin strong, focused, driven, independent. She admires that. But once you become emotionally attached, fear creeps in. Fear of losing her, fear of not being enough, fear of being replaced, and fear subtly changes behavior. You text quicker than usual. You over-explain simple things. You apologize for things that don't require apology. You prioritize her moods over your mission. You cancel your goals to maintain closeness. You shrink yourself, slowly, and you call it love. But biologically, it communicates dependency, and dependency alters perception. Understand something deeply, my friend. Attraction is not sustained by comfort alone. It is sustained by contrast, strength and softness, presence and independence, certainty and mystery. When you collapse into emotional predictability, her brain adjusts. Dopamine thrives on anticipation. When anticipation disappears, stimulation decreases. When stimulation decreases, emotional intensity declines. And when intensity declines, she begins to feel different. Not because she consciously decided to, but because her nervous system recalibrated. Let me say something that may sting. She does not love you in isolation. She loves how she does not love you in isolation. She loves how she experiences herself when she is with you. If around you she feels desired, valued, elevated, protected, inspired, her brain associates you with emotional reward. But if around you she begins to feel responsible for your happiness, emotionally burdened, less stimulated, less inspired, or subtly superior, her attraction shifts. And when attraction shifts, love follows. Now here is the part no one tells men. When you make a woman your entire world, you remove the very thing that made you attractive, your world. She was drawn to your ambition. She was drawn to your structure. She was drawn to your emotional composure. When those traits weaken, the foundation weakens. You think giving more will fix it, but giving more without maintaining strength creates imbalance. And imbalance destroys polarity. Look at the pattern. When you pull back slightly to focus on yourself, she becomes more attentive. When you invest in your body, your mission, your friendships, she becomes curious again. When you stop seeking reassurance, she offers it. Why? Because emotional scarcity increases perceived value. The brain protects what feels rare, but it devalues what feels guaranteed. This isn't manipulation, it's psychological economics. My brother, this is not about playing games, it is about understanding dynamics. When you are internally stable, you radiate something powerful. Calm dominance. Not loud dominance, not ego, but grounded energy. Women are highly sensitive to emotional regulation. When you remain centered under pressure, her nervous system feels safe. When you react emotionally, seek validation, or show fear of loss, her subconscious reads instability, and instability lowers attraction. You must understand this. Love is not a constant. It is a fluctuating emotional response. And emotional responses are influenced by biology, environment, contrast, perception, scarcity, status signals, energy exchange. It is complex, but it is not mystical. So what is the answer? You don't become cold. You don't withdraw affection. You don't manipulate emotions. You master yourself. You maintain your mission regardless of relationship status. You cultivate emotional discipline. You love without surrendering identity. You love without surrendering identity. You give without begging. You care without collapsing. You stay rooted in your purpose even when your heart feels vulnerable, because the man who remains centered cannot be destabilized. If she stays because she feels elevated by your presence. If she leaves, you remain whole because your identity was never dependent on her validation. That is strength. That is masculine stability. That is emotional leadership. And here is the final layer. You cannot control someone else's nervous system. You cannot force dopamine. You cannot negotiate attraction, but you can control your frame. You can control your growth. You can control your emotional regulation. You can control whether you shrink or expand. And expansion is magnetic. So if you're hurting right now, if you feel confused, if you're questioning your worth, stop. You are not worthless. You are unaware. Now you understand. Love is not about how much you give. It's about how you make someone feel while remaining powerful within yourself. Become a man who builds daily. Become a man who trains his mind. Become a man who respects himself enough to never beg for emotional crumbs. Because when a man masters his internal world, he doesn't fear external loss. He becomes rare, and rarity is value. Remember this, my friend. Never lose yourself trying to keep someone else. Because the moment you lose yourself, you lose everything. My brother, I need you to sit with this because it is the kind of truth that hits hard, but once understood, will change everything about the way you see love, attraction, and yourself. She doesn't love you for your effort. She doesn't love you for the hours you've spent, the sacrifices you've made, or the loyalty you've poured into her. She loves how she feels when she's around you, that mix of excitement, desire, admiration, curiosity, and safety that sparks her nervous system and keeps her emotionally alive. Every smile, every glance, every subtle movement you make affects her brain chemistry. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, all hardwired signals that determine whether she feels alive in your presence or bored, suffocated, and distant. You see, my friend, attraction is not earned through submission, overgiving, or sacrifice alone. It is created through presence, independence, emotional composure, and purpose. The moment you shrink yourself to please her, the moment you overinvest without boundaries, the moment you allow her to become the center of your identity, attraction quietly fades. She begins to feel safe, but less alive. She begins to pull away, not because she wants to hurt you, not because she is cruel, but because her subconscious senses a lack of polarity. You were once the spark in her life, the energy she couldn't stop thinking about, the man whose presence elevated her. And when that energy disappears because you became predictable, desperate, or dependent, the feelings follow. But here's the brutal truth most men never see. This is not her fault, and it is not yours entirely either. It is biology. It is human wiring. The only thing you can control is yourself. Build your life, master your emotions, strengthen your body, pursue your mission, and protect your identity. Learn to love without collapsing. Care without begging. Give without overextending. Stand firm in your purpose and maintain your emotional equilibrium regardless of her presence or absence. When you do this, something remarkable happens. You become magnetic. Not because you play games, but because your energy communicates strength, stability, and worth. She will either be drawn to that energy and stay because of the elevation it creates, or she will leave, and you will remain whole, intact, and unshaken. A man who masters himself does not need validation from anyone. He commands presence, he commands respect, and he commands the emotional space around him. Remember this, she doesn't love you for what you give, or even for who you are in isolation. She loves how she feels when she exists in your presence. Protect your energy, protect your identity, elevate your life. Be rare, be strong, and let your presence speak louder than words. Because a man who becomes the master of himself is never powerless in love.